Breaking news, ex-police officer Nomia Rosemary Ndlovu appeared at Cambridge Court. What? Sgebengu. Hey!
Criminologist Almarie Mayberg told the court that Ndlovu is a high risk and would be classified as a serial killer, and that there is no prospect for her rehabilitation.
I mean, coming back as a journalist and having to write that kind of story, where do you even start?
Kati family nkwat kusukela ka family ya ka Mabasa ya ka Mashego ya ka Motha family ya ka ina ka Ndlovu na family ya ka Homu ku ya hin'we timbili ta n'we sweswi mi ti byela kuwe mi ni nga dlaya maxaka n'we a ni tivi nchumu mara ni kombela mi ni rivalela tiso ti va hi Xikwembu.
It felt like a reality show, unedited, unscripted. She was good TV. I mean, you would remember a lot of people on social media were saying, this is a documentary waiting to happen. People got to experience Rosemary. Rosemary was another story that we picked up from a different publication, having ran the story. And I remember at the time that article read like a movie. You know, we thought to ourselves, what? You know, we've covered horrible stories, but this? So we started going to court, one would say at the tail end of the case, but not necessarily at the tail end considering what happened and what we witnessed. We got to court when she was now supposed to take the stand and testify in her defense. This was after the state had put forward about 53 witnesses to testify against her. This included experts, you know, neighbors, doctors, police officers, and all of those people that formed part of the state's case. We were the only TV news channel that was there at the time. I remember quite vividly, Rosemary was sitting in the dock, and Advocate Soko was just sitting where, you know, defense lawyers would usually sit. And I was sitting facing his direction and speaking to him. I remember turning, and when I looked at this woman that is accused of all these murders, you know, she gave me a very frightening look. She gave me a frightening look, and I understood because she didn't know who I was and why I was speaking to a lawyer. And at that moment, I was taken aback. On the same day, in fact, we got video footage from evidence that was already presented in court. This is the evidence of her plotting to kill or have her sister and her 5 children killed in a fire.
Marugwaza nokudubula ayikho emakhaya yabona ukushisa number 1 nokuhamba number 1 zona lezo yithi.
A former Tembisa constable has been caught on camera ordering a hitman and undercover police officers to murder her sister and her 5 children so she can cash in on an insurance policy.
We played that, so we packaged that and it went to air. I suppose that then, you know, became the talking point because everybody had started talking about it. We get to court the following day, and while we were setting up, she's there in the dock, and you know, photojournalists, video journalists are now in the court because obviously the story was on TV and everybody had picked up. You know, so a lot of journalists now came on that day. And journalists are taking pictures of her as per usual, you know. And because of the look that she gave me the previous day, I thought maybe I might need to take a step back because we don't know what we're dealing with here. But immediately when I realized that she was now interacting with one of the photojournalists, and she just said to him, because he was done taking pictures, she said, "Why have you stopped taking me photos?" Everybody in court went, "Oh, yeah, why have you stopped taking me pictures?" Have you run out of cards? No, put in another card and take more pictures of me. That's when all of us stood up. We were like, oh, okay. Everybody now started taking videos. This was when now she was giving us a spectacle. She was posing, you know, oh, do you want me to pose like this? Do you want me to do this? Are you satisfied? She asked every person who was taking pictures and videos if they were satisfied with all the pictures that they were taking. I was still taking videos. And she turned and she looked at me and she said, "This is now the video that went viral."
Right. Yeah. Yeah, well, more right when. Oh, okay. Was this unjani, right? Okay. All ready for today? All ready for today? Oh. Okay. All right. Okay.
Very confident, you know, and, you know, answering questions and engaging journalists. And that's when we got to meet Rosemary. This was the first time that we got to meet, you know, this person who committed all these murders.
Breaking news. Ex-police officer Rosemary Ndlovu appeared at Cambridge Court. What? Skebengu. Hey! Advocate Williams, I'm a celebrity. Yo, Jehovah.
And at that particular point, we knew that this is one special case. If that article that was written about her, you know, was anything to go by, this is now the character, the person that is behind all of that. And, you know, at that moment when she took to the stand, she was able to articulate herself. She, you know, answering questions. But also during the ad breaks, we saw a different character coming out, you know, engaging us again. I mean, why are you not taking pictures of me? Take pictures of me. And I remember at some point she said, "You guys lie a lot." I can just imagine. Ex-cop, I mean, who would have thought that I would be a celebrity? Who would have thought? You guys lie a lot as journalists. I'm going to be all over the papers, but because you have to sell those papers, it's fine. Do what you have to do. Since 2018, she's been in prison. She's tried on numerous occasions to apply for bail, but those went unsuccessful. So she's been in prison from 2018 in March, around the 6th or the 7th of March. And in July this year, that's when the trial actually started.
I'm thanking you.
Joyce namhla awufa nabana bawe 9 o'clock.
There is the sister who was now supposed to be killed.
Sisawa kushavela petrol, sisawa shavena cold drink, ayichile. Leswanga ayichela swo swa drugs.
Anungidlayanga seswame ani Steve sesonsungula kushitwa namhlala court.
And her own mother.
Her mother refused to speak to us. The old lady testified in her daughter's defense.
So in total, there would be around, 8 people that she would have killed? So the state at the time was alleging that she had a reign of terror from around 2012, ensuring her family members and then luring them to kill them for insurance policy payouts. And, at that particular time, when she was arrested, it was in 2018.
On their way to Bushbuck Ridge, where her sister Joyce lived with her children, they stopped to buy petrol, which would be used to set them alight.
Ye infonde tisikisi 1 o'clock navusiku maswona. Akukame. Utshame njani na vamakhelwana wa wena? Okay, mina makhelwana mi tshame kahle ene a twana ngopfu. No ka twana. Aku buti Rodney wa tirha night na no buti Rodney next door mi la ka ndla cream white.
Bengicanga ukuthi sihambe manje ne. Masihamba manje niyohlangana naye ngimbize sihlangane somewhere. Mina mhlambe ngipake imoto laphana yabona. Ngimnikezele la philisi njabule yabona. Ngimtshele ngithi la maphilisi asiza untamba mawulala uwaphuza womkhuhlana ngithi manje kuzingena isizini yomkhuhlana ngithi niwaphuze mani lala ngoba ayalalisana then nina nizokhona ukungena ke akunamabhadla laphana.
Police had set up a sting operation when one of the men that were hired to take out her sister turned to the police because they got scared. They turned to the police and told the police what she had been planning.
And this sweleswo loko ndzundzuka loko a vula loko i vulavule hi Galfontein la ange ni n'wi nyike ko 500 ni n'wi xavela na swakudya. So I ntiyiso sweswo swi endlekanga.
But she had checked herself into a hospital earlier to create an alibi, right? So on the day she checked herself out, so that she could point out her sister's house. And she says in the video, so when you guys carry out this, it would be at night. I would be back at the hospital so that when I get the call, I can start claiming.
Ngibuyela la esibhedlela. Ngibuyela la esibhedlela nayo baba endlini uyazi ukuthi ngila esibhedlela. So la esibhedlela ngicelile banginikeze i-pass out bathi ngibuye ngo-4. So lana noma ngafika ngo-5, 6, 7 akunandaba. As long as
we know that she killed, for example, her cousin Mayeni Mashaba. She killed her niece Zanele Mota, her boyfriend Morris Mabasa, her sister, who she poisoned and later came back to strangle. She got around 700,000 rands for that one. For the boyfriend, she got around 400,000 rands. Witness homo. She listed him as the spouse.
Mulanga sayina ti form lete I Morris ku why aku munhu angala ka ti picture munhu anga kumandwini I Morris I'm Steve.
If you list someone as a spouse, the policy there are benefits because it could double. One of the policies was supposed to pay 15,000 rands, but because it was an accidental death, it paid 33,000 rands, which was the first payment, and later, 6 months later, they paid out 100,000 rand. Also because through the evidence that was proven and was shown in court, she did not take out insurance policies to help family members, as she had said, to say, I took out these insurances because I did not want to carry the burden of burying my family members once something happened to them. I wanted to help out. But the sister also came to testify. Well, she says, yes, you did contribute to the funeral. It was so bad during the time of burying witness Madala Homo that they struggled, financially, they struggled to bury him. And you contributed 200 rands just to buy meat.
Mara anshavangi nyama ya 200. Angata shawa nyama 200 inkosini.
Maurice Mabasa, on the 14th of October 2015, he passed away. According to Exhibit SSS, at that stage, your bank account balance was R1.71.
What's quite interesting is that even the judge or the prosecutor at the time was saying, it's quite interesting how you would be either around the vicinity when this person dies, or you'd be the first person to be called when this person dies. Or when these people died. So, for example, she claimed that her boyfriend, Morris Mabasa, disappeared and was later found dead.
khodi yi nga vula leswi yi lavaka ku vula swona mara sweswo a ni swi tivi nkarhi wa ku hetelela ku ni gcina Morris ku n'wi vona a ku ri nampundzu hi ti 13 loko a famba ya ntirhweni until loko ni ta receive call ya ku ta hi le ku constable Mugwari a ni vutisa ku ni le ku ni n'wi byela ku ni ya Olifants Police hi laha ni nga tivaka ku Morris u lovile mara loko ku ri ku khodi yo vona ingaku meme ni nga swi endla a ni swi tivi proof ya ku ni swi endlile yi kwini swa ni hlamarisa mara loko va swi vula a va swi vuli.
She went to Olifantsfontein police station where she had gone to report a missing persons case, and the police officers there said, well, you are here as a police officer to report a missing persons case. Do you have this person's picture? And she said, no, I don't have it, but I don't live very far. Less than 5 minutes, she was back crying.
A ndzange ni rila hi ku loko ni tsundzuka kahle loko Sejeni Mambale na Xiluvana va ni kote ku vona movha wa vona ku ya yima gatini ni va hlanganisa ni ya gatini so loko a ni rila a ni tshembi ku ni ta va ni kotile na ku va hlanganisa la gatini.
Oh, they killed my husband. Oh, they killed my boyfriend. And the police that testified said that, at the time we hadn't even opened the exhibit bag. If you look at how the case ended and where she was financially, Rosemary did not own a house. Her car, she lost her car. She only had a car and she lost that car. So essentially we're sitting with a woman that, got about 1.4 million rand but has nothing to show for it. So all of that money was through that modus operandi of I will lure you in, I will pretend to love you, I will, register, apply, and then kill you, list myself as the sole beneficiary, and then cash in. One of the hitmen who was hired to kill her own mother was paid around 2,600 rand.
Her mother refused to speak to us, but kept on referring to how heartbroken she was by this matter.
Phone calls between your number and the hitman that you hired, Mr. Njabulo Vincent Kunene.
This is a documentary waiting to happen.
Ti calls na ti vona mara an tsundzuki Njabulo ni n'wi xavile tanihi hitman an tsundzuki ni xave munhu ku ava hitman se swa ni hlamarisa a ni n'wi vonanga.
No,
a ri haleni
she was here in Johannesburg, as far as I know.
All in all, she got about 1.4 million rand.
The mere mention of Morris's name brings Ndlovu to tears. She has denied killing or ordering a hit on him, saying they'd been together till the end.
Loko hi famba hi ya nkosini ka va Morris xin'wana na xin'wana a ku endla mena na loko hi fika ka va Morris.
How does your story not have its own personality? Because she was the leading character. She made writing so easy.
I vula ntiyiso mara a ni xavangi nyama ya 200 a ni nga ta xava nyama ya 200 enkosini.
Or just the things that she does, the performance in the court, how she would speak about her own lawyers and her legal team, because at some point she was asked about her affidavit that she made during her bail application, one of her bail applications. And she said, well, it seems my attorney at the time did not understand what I was telling him. Maybe it's the English that was written there. And you're like, you're talking about someone who's represented you before. Here you are charged with a serious crime. And you are saying, if the court wants to say that or believes that I did these things, then so be it. But I did not kill all of those people. And it was interesting also seeing her many faces. Like we got to be introduced to Rosemary, the flamboyant Rosemary, the friendly Rosemary, but sometimes the agitated Rosemary. During her testimony, when they were asking her about her boyfriend's death, she would break down. But it was later proved that she's the one that killed Morris, right? Even during the proceedings when she was shown the pictures of the people who had died, either to identify what they were wearing on that day, because she would dispute that, no, he was not wearing this item of clothing. They would show her and she did not want to see, you know, all of the clothes. So it was interesting watching how she reacts to different people. And it was interesting looking at how she would break down when they're talking about her boyfriend, but not necessarily break down when they're talking about her very own sister who she killed.
Andzela ku va ri va te loko va searcha munhu loyi va kuma ku u na makhadi ka yena. Loko va cheka tikhadi letiya va kume ku i Morris Mabasa.
I remember she had just a pack of
crisps,
and that she had been eating inside court, and she threw them at journalists. And even the way that the security guards were handling the situation, and the police, we understand that these were her own colleagues, the people that she worked with. So those are some of the things that we were experiencing with Rosemary, more of the personality of A, you know, and obviously the drama, the theatrics in court when she responds to questions. So what do you make of the video where you are seen, you know, ordering a hit on your sister? She says, well, I was coached.
And this plan le a rena ya ke Bushbuck Ridge a ku ri ku famba mina na Qivisile na Njabulo ku ne va kombanga ngini a ku na la ni nga zani va na meeting na Njabulo kunene na Mtshali.
I think the most shocking thing was how you would also hire someone to kill your own mother at just 2,600 rands.
Leswaku a ni zangi ni twa ku vava hi ku a ni si tshame kaya ka mi ni chavisiwani.
And she came back and she said, I don't believe it. We took a trip to Bushbuck Ridge where we visited her sister.
Swi ni vavile ku laha no mutwe hinkwaswo loko a ta ku vamakhelwana wa mina a va ta teka ngi laya hi se khandlele kumbe ni hise hi ti-boyfriend kumbe a va ta ku hlangane tintambu ta gezi se hi to ti nga hisa yindlo kumbe i mirhi leyi ni yi khendlaka ma ni khendli mirhi buti na xo yeleyo ku a no va na nchumu hambi hi yindlo ni pfune hi mfumo. Ene swi nyika xihluku swa ku i khale a tirha loko a la ta ni hisa ka yindlu ya mfumo a swi mi nyiki tingana na hi ku a ni tirhi a ni na xa mina. Why loko a ri sesi wa rirhandzu ka mehe a nga ni akelanga hambi o ni akela 3 room ya ke at least ni kota ku fihla nhloko na vana lava mina se mara a tsandzeka sweswo se namuntlha a la ku ni hisa a ni hisela ka yindlu ya mfumo wa swi vona swa ku a swi amukeleki.
Joyce says she had received a strange call in the early hours of that morning. It shocked her when suddenly, during the day, police arrived at her home in the company of her sister. Joyce lived in fear in the subsequent months. 3 years later, she finds herself on the witness stand doing what she never thought she would do, testifying against her own sister.
So loko ngena court n'wi vona u titwe njhani?
Loko ni n'wi vona mbilu ya mehe yi ve na ku n'wi filela sori mara ntlhanu kexa namuntlha ni fanele ka misava leyi ni nga ha ri kona na vana va me va nga ha ri kona la ka leyi misava na xin'wanana xa ka xi nga pfuni nchumu buti xi ri na 7 months a xi ta va xi fe ku vava.
Joyce and her mother live in the same street. Separate is their views on this matter. Her mother refused to speak to us, but kept on referring to how heartbroken she was by this matter. The old lady testified in her daughter's defense in the High Court last month.
So wena na mana wena mi njhani sweswi loko ku endlekala leyi relationship ya n'wina ya ha ri kahle?
Me ka me yi kahle ni nga tivi ka yena. Me ka me yi kahle.
Ma vonana?
Ha vonana.
Mi vulavula loko a huma court?
Loko a ta vuya ni yile la kaya ku vana lava va lwi va Yvonne na Rana va sale na mina.
The laughter of her youngest son clouds the atmosphere at her home. He runs around oblivious to the tragedy that has rocked his family. This is a safe haven, his mother says, away from anything or anyone who could hurt the young man. To this day, Joyce prays for her sister Rosemary's change of heart.
Mama got to tima le TV today.
10th of August, you indicated
what destruction this crime has left the families of those who were impacted by this crime. What would be the relevant sentence for this person? And it was clear at that time that it would be a harsh one.
I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. It overwhelms me. I can't tell. I don't know what to say.
attempted murder on her mother. The accused is sentenced to 10 years imprisonment.
The one sobering question that she asked was, "You're claiming I killed all these people, but where's the proof?" So that judgment would answer Rosemary's questions.
We have already heard, as the state correctly pointed out, the evidence of some 54 witnesses. They mainly dealt with the manner in which the victims and the crimes were committed. In order to arrive at the appropriate sentence, one will have to look at various circumstances. The accused is 46 years old. She is the first offender, and that counts in her favor. She has been in custody for some period in excess of 3 years. At the time of her arrest, and in fact, at the time when she started committing the offense which she was found guilty of, she was gainfully employed as a member of the South African Police Service. At the time of her arrest, she was also already elevated to a position of a sergeant. In other ways, when she committed all these offenses, she was donning the blue uniform and shouting the slogan that we serve and protect. The evidence placed before me is that she paid 2,600 rand for the elimination, the murder of the mother. That was also followed by the sting, during which we received evidence from the accused herself on the clip how her sister has to be killed. Such conduct is frowned upon by the state. She was manifestly involved in killing of his own relatives, meaning that their death meant some money for her.
What would be the relevant sentence for this person? And it was clear at that time that it would be a harsh one.
On the murder count, the accused is sentenced to life imprisonment on each count.
Him delivering a judgment of guilt on all 6 counts, to me that came as, oh, okay, we mean business here.
On count 3, defeating the ends of justice, the accused is sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. On count 4, 5, 6, and 8, those are the fraud counts. The accused is sentenced to 10 years imprisonment on each count.
Because you fraudulently took out insurance and listed yourself as a beneficiary. You lied to various insurance companies about, the misrepresentation.
On count 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, incitement to commit murder, the accused is sentenced to 10 years imprisonment on each count.
The attempted murder of her mother.
Lastly, on count 14, attempted murder on her mother, the accused is sentenced similarly to 10 years imprisonment. The sentences in count 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are ordered to run concurrently with the sentence of life imprisonment imposed in count 1.
So essentially, she got 6 life terms and she got 10 years for the fraud. But ultimately, when it was rounded up, she would get 6 life terms because there's that thing of the effective sentence.
Effective period of imprisonment, therefore, is life.
Xiboho lexi khoti nga xi teka na xi amukela and a ni kwatelangi munhu. Lexi endlaku ni rila I ku vanhu lava nga lova I maxaka ya mina and ni va rhandza.
I went to the prison to inform them that they mustn't take her to any prison. They must take it. She must stay there by Apashimambolo. They mustn't take her to Johannesburg where because that side she had access to have a phone, to do whatever she wants. So as long as she's still in the Apashimambolo prison, I'm safe.
Ku loko court yi swipfumela a ni kombela ku yisiwa Johannesburg prison. Na le prison se a ni va byerile eKhosimamapuru. Mara loko ri court ya pfumela ni ta kombela ku va ni heleketa Pitori ya teka swimbalo swa mina.
The state would usually bring the affected parties to testify about how life has been and what impact this crime has had on the families.
Family hinkwato kusukela ka family ya ka Mabasa, ya ka Mashikho, ya ka Motha, family ya ka hina ka Ndlovu na family ya ka Homu. Ku ya hi n'we timbili ni ta n'wi sweswi mi ti byela ku mi ni nga dlaya maxaka n'we a ni tivi nchumu mara ni kombela mi ni rivalela tiso tiva hi Xikwembu.
A ni swi koti ku rivalela n'wana wa me a ri wun'we
I can't forgive her, my Lord.
I mean, Zanele is the niece. She left behind kids with her boyfriend. She died. She was released in Rosemary's custody from hospital. And 2 days later, Rosemary was rushing her to a different hospital where she was found to have had damaged liver and broken ribs when she did not have that 2 days ago. How she died and left her kids behind, 3 kids. And children who still become emotional when they're asked about their mothers, or when other children speak about their mothers. That's the kind of impact that this has.
I received evidence that she is not a candidate to be admitted to rehabilitation.
The accused has never shown any remorse for the crimes. As a result, she shows no empathy towards the victims nor their families and has no remorse for her actions.
People come into court and they hide their faces for the smallest crime, right? People who were looting would come into court, with their faces covered. But you're charged with multiple murders and you still have the time to perform for cameras. You still have the time to, deny everything, even at the face of overwhelming evidence, and still keep a straight face. But if you look at Rosemary, you're dealing with someone with greed. You're looking at someone who's a serial killer. But at the heart of it is the love for money. You know the saying that the long arm of the law will finally catch up with you. How long will you be in the dark? Or just valuing the gift that is life and the right that is enshrined in our Constitution, that everybody has the right to life and nobody has a right to take that away. Whoever said money is the root of all evil knew exactly what they were talking about, and you find it in Rosemary.
Just nice.